Uh, and I am a Premier Financial Representative for First Tech. So just a little bit about myself. I've been in the finance industry for the last 13 years, 8 of that with First Tech. I started as a teller and worked my way up. I really am excited to be here to share the goodness that is First Tech and Addison Avenue, especially with finance. And I know I didn't grow up knowing any of this stuff. So it's nice that we're able to share this. And if you have any questions, please, you can chat them in. And I want this to be as interactive as possible. And, you know, no questions are dumb questions, because if you don't know, you don't know. So I'm just gonna start sharing my screen here real quick. And I'll just kick off a little bit about First Tech and where, you know, what we're about. So this is First Tech. So what can First Tech offer you? We are a strong, lasting financial partnership with over 600,000 members. We were founded in 1952 by tech industry for the tech industry. We started as the HP Credit Union for employees. We're among the top 10 largest credit union in the US. We provide digital and face-to-face and self-serving banking options. And we have a rich history of giving back to our communities. First Tech actually gives the employees 16 hours a year for paid for volunteering. I am personally a big sister. So I have a little sister that is, she just turned 12. So I spend my time volunteering with her. So this is just a little snapshot of what we offer at First Tech. We offer financial education resources like the webinar you're on today. You can access us anytime, anywhere. We have a full range of products, which I'll go over in the next slide. We also offer lower rates and fees. So we're not going to nickel and dime you to death like the bigger banks. Once you become a member of the credit union, you know, you're buying into that and your money is going to go back into the community. We also provide competitive savings rates as best as we can. Since it is a pandemic, rates have really shifted along with everything else in our lives, right? We offer also on-site consulting services for employees, employee relocation services. So we do offer quite a bit of different services, not just the regular, you know, checking, savings, things like that. So just a little breakdown of our of what the products we do have to offer. So just the regular banking, savings, certificates, retirement accounts, HSAs, borrowing. It's a great time to refinance your home. If you're thinking about buying a home, needed to consolidate some debt, rates are actually very low right now, not as low as they were in the pandemic at the beginning of the pandemic, but they're still pretty low. We do home loans, home equity lines of credit, vehicle loans, credit cards, personal loans, and stock loans. We also offer insurance, auto, property, life, and more, including pet insurance. So you want to make sure that your furry friend is insured. We have that as well. And then we have investment services, which is our Addison Avenue partners, which Shannon will be talking more about that. They provide professional financial advisor services and also do self-managed accounts. So I believe there'll be a link in the chat. So if you want to speak with myself or Shannon, you could actually set up an appointment to chat about things. I love learning more about my members, about your financial goals and dreams, and I want to be able to help folks get there. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and I'll hand that over to Shannon.
Can everybody hear me? Perfect. And you can see my screen just fine, right, Melita? Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining our presentation today on women, wealth, and well-being. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all. Just a little background on myself. I've been with Addison Avenue Investment Services in First Tech Credit Union for almost 23 years now. It'll be 23 years at the end of the month. I started out working as an assistant, had no experience in the industry whatsoever, and just learned along the way. And within about 6 years became full advisor. And now I have many hundreds of clients that I work with. A lot of my time is spent helping women navigate the unique challenges that we face in regard to planning and saving for our financial futures. This presentation is going to give you some background information and specific action items that you can take charge of your financial life. First, I need to review a really important and very short disclosure, so bear with me. Bottom line is Addison Avenue Investment Services is the investment arm wholly owned by the credit union, but we differentiate between the credit union and the investment side because the investments are not insured, whereas the credit union products are fixed and insured. So that's an important thing to remember. And I apologize. There we go. There's the disclosure. So it's really important just to know that even though we're wholly owned by the credit union, we're dealing with different products than the credit union does. So we want to make sure to keep those separate. So today, my objective is to empower you with knowledge and action steps to build your foundation for wealth. Over the course of my career, I've seen positive outcomes for people who take the time to plan. And I've also seen the major struggles for people who fail to plan way too late, or leave everything up to a partner. Money continues to be the #1 source of stress worldwide for women and men. This workshop aims to give you the tools and knowledge to feel empowered to take action. So for today's agenda, we're going to look at some data about women broadly. Where are we today and what are the investing habits unique to us? And then we'll have a conversation about what wealth and investing means to you. And we'll discuss a few considerations and behavioral aspects to keep in mind. And then we'll dive into some action items you can take, which I hope leads you towards a greater sense of well-being. So to begin with, it's really important to reflect on where we've been so that we can plan for where we're going next. Women are wielding more power and assets today than ever before. We're on trend to gain even more in the future. So let's make sure that we have the tools and the knowledge that we need to be confident with our financial decisions. Let's take a look at the rise of women's power, because we've hit incredible milestones, but can all acknowledge that there's still a lot more room to do and a lot more work to do. In the US, women are graduating from college and graduate school at a higher rate than men, accounting for 57% of recent degree earners. And women now make up 27% of the 117th Congress. And I know that doesn't sound like a big number, but it's the highest percentage in US history. And each election cycle, that number is growing, which is really encouraging. And looking back to the Olympics that we just had this last winter, in 1924 at the Olympic Games, there were only 13 women, and they were all figure skaters. In 2021 at the Tokyo Olympics, there were 5,494 women compared to 5,982 men. So the recent Olympics were billed as the first gender-balanced Olympics that we've had, with 49% of the athletes identifying as women. And also the number of women in leadership roles is increasing. Women now account for 22.5% of Fortune 500 boards. And again, I know that doesn't sound like a big number, but it is continuing to grow. And lastly, what's really encouraging is women are starting businesses at 2 times the rate of men. The US has 12.3 million women-owned businesses, up from 402,000 just in 1972. Of these new businesses, women of color started 64% of them, which is even more encouraging. And this is really exceptional growth. And we expect that number of women-owned businesses to just keep increasing over time. In conjunction with women's rise in power, women are on their way to holding the majority of wealth. And these numbers, when I was researching all of these slides and double checking facts that BlackRock, the fund company that provided this presentation, I was really surprised at these numbers. So by 2023, women are projected to hold between 93 trillion of the world's wealth and are adding 5 trillion to the wealth pool globally every year. Again, those are just staggering numbers. And women stand to inherit the majority of 30 trillion in intergenerational wealth transfers just in the United States over the next decade. And more women are breadwinners or co-breadwinners in the majority of homes. So between 80 to 90% of women will at some point in their lives be solely responsible for all of the household financial decisions. So that's all great news, right? It's all good. But like I mentioned, there is still challenges. Women are still paid less. Women still earn 82% of what men earn generally. More than 2.3 million women left the US workforce in 2020. And we have to acknowledge that a lot of that is because of the pandemic. But 42% of working women say that they're often or always burned out. And 1 in 3 is considering leaving their current position or downshifting or changing careers or getting out of their career altogether. On top of lost wages, the shift will likely exacerbate an already stark gender pay gap. So it's really important to learn financial tools to save for your retirement in any of these circumstances. And so what do women want when it comes to money and finances? Given certain financial realities, it's not surprising that our report shows that women have a unique set of demands. So we want to be secure financially. We generally feel less secure with our financial futures compared to men. Only 2 out of 5 women rated their financial health positively. Also, it's really important to most women to be debt-free. Women appear to be more concerned than men about short-term debt, and 57% of women say they need to have little or no debt in order to feel financially secure. And we all want to feel confident about our money. 51% of women say that money is the #1 stressor in their life. 51%, that's a pretty big percentage, say that money is the #1 stressor. And that's compared to work, health, family, and any social aspects. And 61% of women would rather talk about their own death than talk about money. That one shocked me. But I see it all the time that people maybe are unsure about what they know. They don't have a lot of time. We're all, as women, very, very busy in our daily lives. But it's really, really important to take a step back and focus on these tools that will get you to the next step. And women want to be knowledgeable about investments to fulfill our personal goals. Among those that invest, millennial women are 9% more likely than men to have fulfilling their goals and meeting their dreams as an overall expectation of investing rather than just beating the market. So there's challenges to face, but the good news is you don't need to be in finance to understand and invest your wealth with confidence. Through knowledge and planning, you can absolutely achieve your goals. So you need to determine, what does wealth mean to you? Because it means a lot of different things to different people. So for some, it means being in a position simply to have choices. For others, wealth brings in mind images of travel, security, independence, or health. So you really need to consider what it means to you personally. And to many, wealth is an enabler of your personal goals. Try thinking about your goals in different buckets. The first bucket might be filled with items you're saving for the longer term. And these could be retirement for you. It could be college for your kids, or going back to school for yourself. Second are items that you'd like to spend money on in the shorter term. And this could be things like vacation. It could mean classes or materials to support your hobbies, or it could be improving your home. And third are ways you'd like to share your wealth. Do you want to help support your extended family? Or is there a cause near and dear to your heart that you'd like to contribute your time and dollars to? Melitha talked about First Tech and how much they encourage us to support our communities in different ways. And so it's really important, if you want to do that, to make sure that you have the time set aside and the resources that you need to do that. So now let's talk about how your goals relate to your money. Goal setting is the first step towards a strong financial strategy. And I know it sounds really basic, and it is, but I'm constantly surprised when I talk with new potential clients on how many people aren't sure exactly what their goals are. So that is absolutely the first step. And every goal needs to have a dollar amount and a date, because if we don't set a date, it's not a goal, it's just a wish. So you need to think about priorities in order of what's a need versus what's a want. And setting SMART goals is a really popular approach. And SMART just stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And I'm sure that all of you have these types of goals in your workplace. So it's really important to take those things that you do in your work and apply them to your personal life. So always make sure to fill your needs bucket first and then your wants. So for example, if you need to pay off $10,000 in credit card debt, you may want to delay taking that $2,000 vacation. So I see this all the time when I'm talking with folks and looking at where their assets are, where they have all of these plans on things that they may want to do, such as home improvement or taking vacations, yet they have a lot of credit card debt or other debts that they really need to focus on first, or they have no short-term savings in the case of an emergency. So we need to focus on those foundations first before we can start talking about the wants. So now that we've discussed the first step, which is setting goals, we can talk about investing. But first we need to get beyond the headlines. We're constantly surrounded by breaking news and attention-grabbing headlines. And often these headlines can feed the fears and uncertainty of investors, because that's what pulls people in to read or to listen. I don't know anyone who isn't stressed out, especially right now, listening to the news of the day, and it can be really, really overwhelming. But when it comes to investing for our goals, it's really important to try to separate our emotions from our decision-making, as hard as that may be. My most important job as a financial advisor is to help my clients focus on what's most important to them and take the emotion out of investing for them. I have had to tell plenty of clients to turn off the TV or log out of Facebook once in a while, because it really is making them so nervous and anxious. And when they're nervous and anxious, they tend to want to sell their investments. So it's really important to focus on those long-term goals and stick with your plan, as opposed to just simply looking at the headlines. Because knowledge is power. You know, the more you know, the more you can be prepared to meet any challenges or changes that come your way. However, there's so many sources of information today, right? You can get information from 100 different sources and they can all say different things. And this can lead to information overload or paralysis. So while it's extremely important to be informed, it's equally as important not to let things distract you from your goals. Your worst enemy often turns out to be the noise around you. Know what counts and what you can and can't control. And, you know, that is a good tip for, you know, life in general, is to try to block out the noise and just focus on what's most important. And one of the things that you can control is the risk that you take on in your investments. And it's hard to have a conversation about investments without talking about risk. Often risk in the investment realm refers to the chance of losing money, right? At the same time, investments make money because you take on certain amounts of risk. I don't know anyone who's looking at their 401k right now or their investment accounts and feeling really happy about where things stand. This year feels, you know, awfully negative and concerning, and it feels like you're taking a lot more risk than maybe you should be. So it's really important to work with your advisor to find the right level of risk for your investments, which balances your risk tolerance with the growth needed to meet your goals. When I work with clients, we always start with a comprehensive financial plan so we can see how we meet their goals while taking the least amount of risk possible. Simply rolling the dice and hoping for a good outcome isn't going to cut it over time. And so risk tolerance is often expressed in profiles such as conservative, moderate, or aggressive. Your risk profile usually takes 3 key items into account. The first one is your goals. You know, what are you saving for? What are those goals that you need to meet? Is your goal to preserve value? So you want to be ultra conservative? Is your goal to generate current income? Is it to generate income and you want growth over time? Or is it simply to have substantial growth over time and you might be comfortable with taking on more risk? Number 2 is how much volatility are you comfortable with? So the degree that the value of an investment goes up and down is called volatility. And so right now, what we're seeing is every day, you know, we have a significant amount of volatility, which again can make people nervous and stray from their path. 3 is the time frame for your goals. The longer you have to invest, the more risk you can take on. You can also have different levels of risk for different buckets of money, depending on your goals and time frame. So your emergency savings, you wouldn't necessarily want to put in aggressive investments. You would want to keep that very, very conservative. And we all can see that investment growth is unpredictable. This chart shows different categories of investments, from ultra conservative, which in this case is cash, to more aggressive growth stock. It shows the best performing categories for the year versus the least amount of returns at the bottom. So if you simply pick a color and follow its performance to one year to the next, you can see how unpredictable it can be. One year, a category can have the best gains, and the next year it can be on the bottom. What this patchwork quilt illustrates is how it's important to not put all of your eggs into one basket. Diversifying your assets is very important, since we can't predict the returns from one year to the next. What I see people do all the time is look at things that have been good performers in the past, and that's what they want to put all of their money into. So when looking at their 401k options, they're simply looking at the returns. They're not looking at the big picture and what's going on with the economy at the time that they actually invest. So what they're doing typically is buying an investment at the top of a market, and it may decline, as soon as they purchase it. So as you can see, it's not an accurate predictor of the next year's performance. So you really need to follow more than simply 1 year or 2 years growth of an investment. The most important factor in investing is to not sit on the sidelines waiting for the best or most comfortable time to invest. And I hear this all the time. I'm waiting until it's a good time. Although uncomfortable at times, taking some risk is necessary in order to reach your goals. If you sit on the sidelines or try to time the market by getting in at the right time or getting out at the right time, you risk not meeting those goals. And I'm not saying leave your money sitting and never make any changes. You need to make small changes based on your investments, what the current allocation is. Your goals do readjust over time, but we don't want to jump in and out just based on fear. And this is especially important if you're saving for long term, particularly for retirement. Get your money working for you. Inflation alone can significantly impact your money, and we're all feeling the effects of inflation right now. $100,000 in 2002 would have been worth about $65,000 today, just from the effects of inflation. So having large balances sitting in savings or CDs, earning low interest, is typically not the best place for money that has to meet your long-term goals like retirement. It may feel more safe, but it's actually harming you in the long run. There's a place for conservative assets, but they're typically for emergency savings and for shorter term goals, and as part of your larger investment portfolio. The longer your money is invested, the better. Compound interest makes time your friend. The more time you invest for, the more your investments can build on themselves. In this hypothetical example where your money grows at 10% each year, the difference between investing for 10 years versus 5 years isn't just 100% difference. It would be 261% more, almost 3 times as much. So you lose 2 ways when you wait: through erosion of your purchasing power from inflation and missing out on compounding returns. So here's another way to look at the impact of your worry on your money. When we get fearful, we tend to move into less risky assets like cash. But when we do that, we take on the opportunity cost of missing the top performing rally days. So this chart shows $100,000 invested in the S&P index for 20 years. So Standard & Poor's index, all US companies, very, very large companies, but missing just 5 years of the best performing days over the last 20 years would have cost your portfolio over $156,000, over a third of its potential value. And if you were unfortunate enough to miss the best 25 days, so not 5 days, but 25, you'd be close to flat on your investment overall. So a reality to consider is that 24 out of the 25 best days in the market came within 1 month of one of the worst 25 days in the market. So overreacting to any one bad day, and you could miss out. A recent example is March of 2020. Once we all got the news of COVID and there was going to be lockdowns, the market dove 35%. So you could have locked in a 35 or 34% decline in your investments if you would have panicked and sold out at that time. If you would have stayed put, by the end of the year, your portfolio would have been up 16%. It would have gained 16% by the end of the year. So it was low as negative 34 and recovered to positive 16. So don't let worry drive your investment decisions. Oftentimes staying invested is absolutely the best strategy. Beyond staying invested, it's also important to trust the diversification and the plan that you put in place when there was less uncertainty. A diversified portfolio will own all of the different asset classes that we saw earlier on that patchwork quilt, but in the correct percentages to match your risk tolerance and your time frame. We saw a lot of regrets coming into the start of the year when investors looked at their portfolios and were comparing it to 100% S&P 500 returns. We call this S&P envy. It's easy to see how this envy comes about. It's the inability for investors to connect the dots of investment cycles over various amounts of time. So in a bear market, one that's declining, a diversified portfolio can still lose money, and that never feels good. Then in the bull market, when things are recovering, when you have that rebound, you may trail the index. And so you can see where this envy comes from. The portfolio never feels like it's working. You lose money, you trail the market, you lose money, you trail the market. But the punchline is, if you add up all of those periods of time, so in this case, 20 years, the diversified portfolio actually works even when it feels like it's losing. You can see in this example how the diversified portfolio actually outperformed the S&P over that 20-year period. And in this case, their definition of a diversified portfolio is 60% stocks, US and some non-US, as well as bonds and a little bit of cash. So that's what they're comparing it to. So it would be a 60-40, more moderate portfolio compared to the S&P, but it's still over that 20-year period performed better. This kind of regret and not understanding why we build portfolios the way we do can lead to bad decisions. So each of you has a different story. Your wants and needs are deeply personal. That said, there's a few distinct commonalities that women share that make our life's journey unique from those of men. Women tend to see money as a means to an end. They use money to achieve personal goals, fulfill commitments, or for issues that we care about. Certain challenges and choices that we make over our lifetime, whether it be career, family, caregiving, health, relationships, those all impact our finances. And they impact women's finances more than anything. Be aware, and if you have a financial advisor, keep them updated so adjustments can be made to your plan over time. So as things change, make sure to update your plan. While everyone's path is unique, there's some fundamental topics to consider when it comes to building your foundation for wealth. And so there's 5 different steps. One is, first step, you have to get organized. 2, we've already talked about defining your goals. 3, know your numbers. And we'll talk about that in a little more detail. 4, get invested. And 5, plan for your unique life path. So step number 1, getting organized, is simply gathering all of your investment statements, tax returns, insurance policies, financial accounts, and any estate or trust documents. Gathering those up and really understand your personal and your family finances, because it's what you don't know that can hurt you the most. Determine who handles the finances in your home. If it's not you, get involved. Talk to your partner about it. I see very often where one partner or the other will be the primary person who's handling all of the finances. But it's really important that both people understand where things are, know how things are invested, and how it could impact you going forward. Talk to your parents about their financial situation and other loved ones that you're very close to, and talk to them about their long-term plans like retirement or estate planning. And if you're the responsible party and you enjoy doing these things, please teach others. As women, I think that's such an important role to really help each other along. So definitely teach others the things that you've learned along the way. An easy way to start in getting organized is with a filing system that works for you. Some suggest tabs or folders on your computer, and others just a simple binder. Another option that a lot of folks have, especially if they work through a financial advisor, is a secure vault, which you can log into through the client access in your investment accounts. What this is a place that you can upload documents where you can share them with other people on your team, like your financial advisor, your tax advisor, insurance agent. But also it's a way to keep everything secure. So if you couldn't get into your home computer, or something happens to your home or your things, then you have a record of that outside of that physical location. What I see work best, and this may seem very simple, is just the simple binder. So I've seen a lot of people have their binders and they put in copies of the latest statement for all of their different accounts. They put in all of their insurance policies. That way, everything is in one place. So if something were to happen to them, their loved ones could pick up that binder and know where everything was. It's also important to share passwords if you're comfortable doing that with people that you trust, and make sure that if something does happen to you, they can access your records. So, these are just really simple and easy tools, but I'm always surprised how many people are not organized and have piles and piles of paper at home, and it can be really debilitating. So that's step number one. So step number two is defining your goals. We've talked a little bit about the importance of goals, and it's extremely important to identify both your short and long-term financial priorities. Short-term goals are those under 3 years. So that's like paying off credit card debt, saving for vacation, or maybe if you want to buy a home in the short term. Medium-term goals would be 3 to 10 years. And that's if you want to pay off your mortgage or student loans, maybe you want to make a bigger donation to charity. And then long-term goals are 10 years plus. And that may be saving for retirement or potentially buying a home or a second home. It can also be useful to classify each goal as a need or a want to help your advisor better understand how to invest for each goal. So number 3 is to know your numbers. So it's really important to know where you stand. So knowing your net worth and cash flow will better help you and your advisor, if you have one, better understand what you're working with today, and identifying possible areas where you can either spend less, save more, or reduce debt to be in better shape tomorrow. So net worth is simply what you own minus what you owe, your assets minus your liabilities. Calculating your net worth is a snapshot of your current financial life. Cash flow is the flow of money in or out over a period of time. So it includes your income and your expenses, which is the base to build a good budget. And very importantly, create and stick to a budget. There's a lot of apps that can help you with that, but your budget's going to include both your basic living expenses, which are your needs, and your discretionary spending, which are your wants. And if you're new to following a budget, I would suggest very strongly reviewing it at least monthly, making updates to it, seeing where you may overspend or where you need to reposition money. And once you have a good handle on things, it's okay to review it quarterly or even annually. But it is important to have a budget and stick to it for the most part, because if you don't know what you're spending, you may not save enough in the long term. And step 4 is to get invested in a diversified portfolio. Many people have access to company-sponsored retirement plans, and it's really important to make sure that you're taking full advantage of those benefits. You can also invest in individual retirement accounts or general brokerage accounts as well. The most important thing to do is just to get started if you haven't. Or if you have gotten started, but you don't really have a plan and you haven't looked at the big picture, I think that's really, really important. Only 44% of women have investments. Again, that was a pretty staggering number to hear, only 44%. So it's still a huge gap for us. If needed, ask for help in support from loved ones or work with an advisor. And it's really important to know yourself. What's holding you back? What makes you nervous? What keeps you up at night? And what do you need to get started? Why should you invest? And this is where goal setting really comes in. And stay engaged and just stay invested. Create a strategy and stick to it no matter what's going on with the market, like we talked about. That's always the smartest strategy. And number 5 is to plan for your unique path. And everyone has a unique life journey. You know, as much as we share commonalities, everyone's life is very, very different. So another important consideration is the fact that women are living longer. Women live an average of 5 years longer than men. And in a lot of cases, it's a lot longer than that. So living longer than ever, women need to consider how to fund their expenses during their post-retirement lives, which could last 25 to 30 years or more, depending on when you retire. This means even greater attention to planning should be applied when considering how to maximize benefits like Social Security, Medicare, and also managing your costs. So next, we're going to talk about some things that affect most of us during our lives, if not all of us. And one is caregiving, health insurance, Social Security and Medicare, and life after divorce or loss, and then estate planning. So parenting or caregiving for family member is taxing both emotionally and financially, but of course can be extremely rewarding in many ways. However, the things like impact on a career and finances is felt way more by women. 12 years is the average that women spend out of the workforce to care for family, whether that is children or spouses or older family members. 2/3 of the care provided to older adults is done by women. So we need to consider investing to cover anticipated costs that may come with that. So you have to take a look at your family structure and determine if that could be a possibility for you down the road and what trade-offs that you want to make. With parenting, 86% of women have kids, and the average is 2 kids. It's actually, I think, 1.7, but we rounded up. Though this percentage is decreasing over time, more and more women are choosing not to have kids. Women are more likely to make a trade-off for family than men, potentially incurring what they always called the mommy penalty, a pay gap that's 3 times that of non-mothers due to lost income and missed opportunities like promotions. And with caregiving, especially with older adults, in the US, we don't do a really good job of talking about the realities involved with elder or spousal caregiving. One of the realities is the high cost of care. National median annual cost for assisted living is for $48,000 a year. So that's $4,000 a month for assisted living. And I often see it significantly higher than that, especially in cases where there's memory care, which could be up to $13,000, $14,000, $15,000 a month. And if you want a private room in a nursing home, it could be over $100,000 a year. In addition to that, the average caregiver spends $7,000 a year of their own money out of pocket on care. And that's nearly 20% of the annual median income, in addition to the cost of the assisted living. So to cover extra expenses, many must pare back, for their own spending, saving for retirement, leisure, and that type of thing. So properly planning early, if you can, is absolutely the best thing to do. It's really important to invest in your health. The average American spent $11,582 on healthcare in 2020. Namely, due to longer lifespans, women are projected to pay about 30% more on average than men. So this needs to be considered in your financial strategy. Make sure to budget appropriately for healthcare expenses. Even if you have great insurance, there's always going to be out-of-pocket costs. So please don't forget to include extra healthcare costs when you're doing your financial plans. Social Security is another area of consideration that you can't forget about. And I have a lot of people tell me that by the time they retire, Social Security is likely to not be there. I disagree. I think that it will, but they will have to make some changes to it, just like they have in the past. But we have to plan with the information that we know right now. Right now, there's 3 different types of benefits. So there's individual benefits, spousal benefits, if that pertains to you, and potentially survivor benefits. Individual benefits are based on your own work history. You need 40 credits, which is about 10 years of work history to be entitled to your own benefit. You're entitled to your primary insurance amount at your full retirement age. And for a lot of us, that number has creeped up a little bit and could be 67 years old for full retirement age. You could also be eligible for spousal benefits. So if maybe you didn't work as much as your spouse, or didn't work outside of the home for a long time and don't have as much of your own benefit, you could collect on your spouse's benefit as well. Those benefits are 50% of what your spouse's primary insurance amount is. There's also survivor benefits to consider for yourself and potentially for children as well. You can be eligible for up to 100% of whatever your spouse was collecting at death. So it's really important to talk about these things, especially, between you and your spouse or you and your partner, because the decisions that are made by one person can affect the other person significantly. So a lot of people collect at age 62, which is the earliest age that you can start collecting. More than 70% of people collecting now started collecting early. And the reason a lot of them did is because they could, and because maybe they didn't understand the impact that had on their partner or on the rest of their retired life. A healthy female who's 65 has a 50% chance of living until 89. That's 24 more years from retirement. So if you collect before full retirement benefits, you collect reduced benefits for the rest of your life. If you wait until after full retirement, you'll be eligible for an increased benefit. So you can wait until age 70 if you choose to. The benefit of that is every year that you wait, your benefit increases and cannot go down for the rest of your life. So if you wait to draw your benefit at age 70, you're going to get paid more for the rest of your life expectancy. And potentially, if you don't live as long as your spouse could be collecting that new higher benefit as well as a survivor benefit. So it's a really important question to ask yourself is, are you grabbing the benefit because you can, or because you actually need the income and it works out with your plan? I'm not going to spend a ton of time going over the next two slides. Spousal benefits, there's some keys. You have to be married for at least a year to collect spousal benefits. Your spouse must be collecting as well. So you can't collect spousal benefits if your spouse has not filed for their Social Security. And your benefit, your own benefit that you earned, has to be less than half of your spouse's. And there is also ex-spousal benefits. So if you were married to someone for 10 or more years, you're currently unmarried and at least age 62, you could receive benefits on your ex-spouse's record. What's nice about that is that person doesn't need to have filed or to have started drawing their Social Security. So you can collect even if they aren't collecting yet. Another caveat is you have to be divorced for at least 2 years with that. So with survival benefits, like we talked about, you can collect up to 100% of your spouse's benefits, and there are benefits for children as well. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going over these because Social Security and the next slide, which is Medicare, could be whole seminars just by themselves. So this is kind of high level information. And if you have more questions, I really encourage you to get a hold of me or talk to your advisor. So Medicare, which we all will be enrolled for at age 65, is made up of 4 different parts. And you may have heard this before, Part A, B, C, and D. And if you're planning retirement, it's really important to understand what your Medicare costs are going to be and what kind of insurance you need in order to have good coverage and not pay a huge amount of out-of-pocket costs. Know that as you're planning for retirement, Medicare is only expected to pay about half of your medical expenses. And that could be a significant amount of money. So you want to make sure that if you don't have another Advantage plan, the Part C Medicare Advantage, that you have budgeted enough to pay higher out-of-pocket costs. When you enroll in Medicare is about 3 months before your 65th birthday, and you will get plenty of notice. Trust me, you'll get a lot of information in the mail. And so it's important to understand how Medicare fits in and works with your overall plans before that time. And this is a really important slide on life after divorce or loss. And I see this all the time. I deal with this all the time, unfortunately, with my clients. And it really affects women, I would say, more than men for the most part. And so for those here who've chosen to partner with somebody, there's an unfortunate reality that we really need to talk about, that a lot of people don't like to talk about, but it has such a big impact on our finances. So I want to talk about, the realities of becoming single again, through divorce or widowhood. No one plans to die before their spouse, and no one gets married, while expecting a divorce, but statistics tell us that the odds are high for women on both. So, we want to focus on how we can help ourselves navigate that situation if it should come about. In the case of divorce, it's really important to know your numbers. You need to understand, what assets you share, where are the investments, any of the retirement accounts, insurance is critical to know, Social Security information. So it's really important to know all of that information, both about yourself, but also about your soon-to-be ex-spouse or your ex-spouse. And protect what's yours. Make sure to update things like beneficiaries and passwords once you become divorced. It's really important, that you make sure to double check everything. I spend a lot of time, unfortunately, helping clients through this process or through loss. And a lot of times people literally bring me just big stacks of paper or a box because they don't know, what they have or what their spouse had, how it all works. So it's important to understand that, just for your general planning, but especially, if something did happen to your relationship. It's also really important to consider, what are you doing with your home? So are you going to try to keep it? Are you going to sell it and split the proceeds? Are you going to try to remain living in it and maybe you still own it together? What I see a lot is a lot of times people want to keep their home. And so they will sacrifice a huge amount of their savings in order to do that. And so it's really important to make that consideration, knowing the big picture, and talk about all of the options before you make any of those big decisions. When it comes to widowhood or a loss of your spouse, remember, it's most important to not make big decisions right away. Changes in the early stages of grief, out of fear or confusion, can be disastrous. So partner with an advisor that utilizes a process, to determine all of the information that you need and helps you through that process. Realistically, there's only a few things that you absolutely have to do in a shorter period of time. And that's things like, handling immediate bills, organizing arrangements, and working with, an estate planning attorney if there is an estate plan in place. And we will talk about that in just a minute, but it's really important, first and foremost, to take care of yourself, create a support network, and ask for help, because so many people have been through the same things and would be willing to help you. It's really, really important, once you've done all this planning, to protect your wealth. And so why should you have an estate plan? If something were to happen to you tomorrow, are your assets structured to go where you want them to go? Would it be obvious to the person who's going to help with this process, or your family member who is left to deal with this? Research indicates that 2 out of 3 Americans die intestate. And what that means is dying without having a written will or having a living trust. And so if you don't already have an estate plan, the best time to put a plan in place is now. Don't wait until you get down the road longer thinking that maybe you'll live, until that, 85, 90-year-old age, because you may not. And so you should absolutely build an estate plan, to position the assets to go where you intend them to go, based on your wishes, and construct the plan that's right for the size of your assets. So can you have just a simple will, or do you maybe need a trust because you want to lay things out in a very, direct way? Maximize gifts to the heirs and ensure that assets are taxed efficiently. That's what a good estate plan can do. So without appropriate estate planning, your estate tax liability may not be well managed. So considering income on and estate tax ramifications for anything of ownership is really important. And then proper planning provides sufficient liquidity for beneficiaries. So what you don't want is something happens with you and your beneficiaries don't have the immediate money to deal with maybe any kind of final expenses or to pay the immediate bills. So you want to make sure that they have the appropriate liquidity to pay off your obligations. So the first step in estate planning is to make sure that you have three main documents in order. One of them is a power of attorney document, which would allow a trusted family member or friend to act on your behalf, especially in the event of incapacity. So if something were to happen and you were to, God forbid, hit your head or something and couldn't make any decisions for yourself for an amount of time, you want to make sure that you appoint someone who can do that. Also, it's really important to have an advance directive, and hopefully your doctors have talked to you about having an advance directive on file with them, because this indicates your medical preferences in case you can't speak for yourself. It's often combined with a medical power of attorney, so you can have a family member or a friend or loved one make those decisions on your behalf if you can't. And the last is a will or a trust, which articulates your wishes for your heirs. But a simple will comes with a trust as well. And it's just the basic information on who things are going to. So it's really important to at least have a will set up. And if you don't have all these documents, you should absolutely speak with a lawyer about creating them. You certainly have a lot of online options, like LegalZoom and those types of options. But I think it's really important to sit down with an attorney, even if you simply just pay for a 30-minute consultation, go over what your wishes are, generally what your assets are, and they can help point you in the right direction as far as what you need to be planning for. And the last and most important step is to take action and get organized and absolutely define your goals, which we've talked about a lot. In order to properly plan for those goals, we need to build your team of experts, right? There's going to be many different professionals that come into your life, so you need to be sure that they're all working in your best interest. You're absolutely the captain of your team, and it's your responsibility to secure the best players. One of the most important can be your financial advisor. Financial advisors are someone who helps you across your lifetime. I have clients that have worked with us, for the whole time I've been here, so almost 23 years. I know them very well. I know their family members. I know their children. I know what makes them, keeps them up at night. So it's really important to work with a good advisor, especially if you don't want to do it yourself, because financial markets are complex. Many individuals don't have the time or really the interest, to keep on top of those things, and that can affect your portfolio and your goals long term. Your advisor can also help pull together the other parts of your team. So an advisor can work with your tax professional, it can work with your insurance person or your attorney. So it's important to have somebody that's going to help you through all of your life stages. And we can also help you build a roadmap to your goals. And that's where it always starts. I always start with what is the big picture plan for my clients, so that we can always know where you stand in relationship to what those goals are. And of course, if you are looking for a financial advisor to help you on your journey, you can always reach out to the advisors like myself at Addison Avenue. You can go to our First Tech website and search for an advisor in your area. Or I'm going to leave my contact information up at the end, so you can feel free to contact me directly. And if I don't, live near you, I can point you out to the people that can help you, or I can answer, questions via email and that type of thing. So that is about it. So wanted to open it up for questions. I think we have just a couple more minutes.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
So my name's Anita Kuchera. I was curious if, you're not in the best of health and you die before you're able to collect Social Security, will your spouse still be able to benefit from your Social Security?
Yes, absolutely. So you still, have your Social Security records in place, and your spouse can absolutely collect on your Social Security. So what a lot of people will do, the remaining spouse will collect on their spouse's Social Security first, and then maybe delay theirs for down the road. So absolutely, yes, your spouse can still collect on your record if that works out to be the best thing for them.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then David, did you want to, I know there's some things in chat, but I wasn't sure if there was more questions.
I don't see, oh, actually Danielle is asking, can you clarify when a trust is needed or beneficial? I
Mhm.
received direction from an attorney that I didn't need one, but I'm not convinced.
Yeah, so a trust is best for larger estates. And especially in maybe situations where you want to be very specific on how you want things laid out. So a basic will is good for, you want to leave $10,000 to this relative or that relative. A trust can provide for the fact that you want to leave $10,000 to them, but you don't want them to get it until they're 18. Or you want them to get that money over a 5-year period. So you can be much more specific, because with a trust, after you pass, you have already named someone to make sure that your instructions are carried out exactly the way you wanted. With a will, it simply is, here's what this person gets, and it's kind of, taken care of and done. But a trust can provide for more specific instructions, and for tax reasons, it can be more tax efficient, especially if it's a larger estate. So it really depends. Any good trust will come with a basic will as well, but a trust can be really beneficial for people. It also, in the case of second marriages, if there's, your kids and their kids, and you want things laid out specifically, a trust can really help with that.
Awesome, thanks for that. And Nick
Yeah.
put a, looks like just informational for some of the things that Shannon had mentioned. Thank you, everybody. Put a snapshot of the screen in if you want to get a hold of Shannon. We'll make sure we have the information available to you at WITI. Thank you guys so much. I thought that was amazing. And we're gonna I'm sure it'll be a great resource in the members area for everybody to check out, especially as a lot of these things with the 15th right around the corner. I guess it's the 18th this month is coming to mind. So any last questions? Oh, please.
Yeah, David, real quick. I also have some really great resources for people who are just kind of starting their planning. So to help with budget, cash flow, things like that. I have some really great worksheets. So if that's something that you're interested in, I can, put that together and send it in emails as well.
Yeah, if you don't mind, that'd be great. We'd love to post it with the video. So that way for those that got pulled away to meetings and stuff today, they'll be able to check it out.
Sounds good.